people ask me, they're like, where did you learn to like start selling online? And I'm like, I just read books and watch YouTube. The best products are whenever you come up with something that you need. You can't wait till your product is perfect to launch it. You don't wake up in the morning and build confidence by shouting affirmations. You build confidence by having a large stack of evidence that you are who you say you are. If you're trying to figure out what product to sell, find something that you're interested in and think about go deep in the niche.
Why don't you tell me a little bit about your background and where were you before this, before starting on Amazon, before starting with e-commerce? Like, where were you and what made you want to jump into e-commerce and Amazon?
Okay. Yeah. So I guess I'll go through like my adult history. So coming out of high school, I joined the Marine Corps. I spent 5 years in the Marines. I was mostly stationed in Hawaii, got some time on embassy duty in Europe, where I got to kind of hang out with a lot of dignitaries and diplomats and stuff like that. And then whenever I got out, I worked in DC for almost a year, working as an intelligence analyst with Homeland Security and Customs and Border Protection. I kind of got out of the Marines because I always knew I wanted to go to college and do something in science. I've always been really interested in science and good at math. So spent a few years trying to figure out how to go back to college. Did a little bit of work in the oil industry for a while, which is what my dad did. And then I was reactivated to the Marines for like 6 months to go to Pendleton to help with deployment of more troops going to Iraq. This was in 2007-ish, 2008. And then I got the opportunity to work with Blackwater. So I went to Iraq for a year with Blackwater, and I ran missions on diplomatic security, taking executives, doing executive protection, taking people to meetings all around Baghdad. And then whenever I got done with that, I had enough money saved up, and so I went to school. And so from 27 to 32 years old, I studied here in San Diego, ended up going to San Diego State University, got my physics degree. Specialized in optics and photonics, kind of how light and matter interact. And then that led me into a job at ASML, which is they're like top 30 S&P 500 company. They're a huge company that no one's ever heard of, but they create the machines that are used to make computer chips. And I got to work on the next generation of machines. That's what is used to basically make the new M2 chips. And if anybody's familiar with semiconductor, that's the new 5 nanometer technology that's really going to be exponential, like huge step in computing power. So I did that for about 9 years, where I came in, there was only a couple of these machines in the world that were still in development, and kind of worked on that through the process to now it's in high volume manufacturing. Got to go to a lot of customer sites like Samsung, Intel, TSMC, the biggest semiconductor manufacturers in the world, and go install some of the first machines and help with troubleshooting all over the world. I traveled a lot. And during that time, I've always wanted to kind of work for myself. I think that comes from my grandfather. He was an entrepreneur. He was a barber, as well as he owned other small businesses and things like that. And so from a young age, before I went to elementary, I was shining shoes in his barber shop. And then through elementary, I was mowing lawns in my neighborhood. And I've kind of always had this confidence that I can just go out and like sell my own product or services. And so whenever I got the job at ASML, I would travel a lot. And I can't really read fiction, but I love to read nonfiction about success or about entrepreneurship or, innovation, anything like that. And so I would spend a lot of these like 16 to 20 hour plane rides going to Asia, sitting there just reading some book like, 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel or Lean Startup or all these different books. And anybody that's known me, especially in the last 10 years, has probably heard of lots of different business ideas, from, making modular rock climbing walls in my backyard that I was trying to maybe think about selling, or maybe renting mountain bikes out of a trailer. And so I kind of spent 9 years just always talking and thinking about like, what kind of business could I start? I realized from working in service industry and lots of different industries through college that like all industries aren't created equally. And I didn't want to have a business where I was tied to a specific place over nights and weekends and things like that. And I realized that for me, I think the ideal business would be to be selling a product, because if I can sell a product that's in stores or online, then I can be anywhere in the world and I can just have a product that I sell that I can keep working on, and I can work on my own schedule. I can travel as I want, and really be able to adapt this business around what I want to do on a daily basis and not be tied and a slave to my business. So I came up with rough liners years before I actually started selling it on Amazon. I probably was making these for like 4 or 5 years just for myself. I got a truck and I had a dog. I got a new truck and I was like, oh, this is my first new vehicle that I've ever had. I have a dog that I love taking to the beach on the weekends, or I'm camping and hiking in the mountains on the weekends. And so I needed a way to protect the backseat areas. And there was other seat covers that cover the backseat areas, but my dog would like lay her head on the door and kind of drool down the door panels, or, get scratch up the door panels. And so I envisioned in my mind that there had to be a way to completely cover the backseat area and the door panels in a way that wasn't currently on the market. And, I just took some old moving blankets and I went to a garage sale and found an old used sewing machine. I'm horrible. I know nothing about sewing, but I just made something and it worked. And then over the couple of years, went to some fabric stores, iterated off that, got something a little bit better, and I could see that it would work. I mean, it was far from like where Rough Liners is now as far as quality and craftsmanship and everything, but the general idea would work, And so yeah, that was kind of people ask me, they're like, well, where did you learn to like start selling online? And I'm like, I just read books and watch YouTube. I can't watch TV. I'm just not the type of person that sits around and watches a TV show for 3 or 4 hours in the afternoon. While my wife's watching TV, I'm sitting there on my laptop and I'm watching YouTube videos, or I'm looking up, I'm trying to do like market research or something, trying to figure out, oh, is this product idea that I have actually a product that could sell? And so I think that I had, just from having so many other product and business ideas before, they never really got to a phase where I ever tried to sell them, but just reading a book like Lean Startup and understanding like how you can find product market fit, look at customer feedback, talk to people, and start realizing, is this actually going to work? I think every idea that I had that didn't work out in the past was a learning experience, and it kind of just set me up to be in the right place at the right time whenever rough liners happened. And so, eventually I just took that leap, and I thought that I had a really good product. As a person that needed this, the best products are whenever you come up with something that you need. When you look at the market and you're like, man, I just like, somebody doesn't have something that I really need, then there's probably other customers out there, right? And early on, I heard from multiple people, they're like, oh, well, I have this other dog seat cover. It's basically the same. It zips up on the sides. It goes over the little handle at the top. I'm like, yeah, but my truck doesn't have that handle at the top. So like, that doesn't work for every vehicle. Also, like every time you load your dog up, you got to zip up the sides. Like, that's just inconvenient. There has to be a better way of doing this. And so in some ways, I feel like I got lucky with the idea of rough liners. It's just like part of my personality to be thinking about products. But then also, like, as a dog person, I just happen to find a need that is applies to so many people in such a huge market. And so yeah, I somehow feel like, rough liners is just probably one of the better ideas that I'll ever come up with in my life. But I always sit around just thinking about products, thinking about business, reading about successful entrepreneurs like Elon Musk and things like that. And eventually things worked out.
I love that. Yeah, it sounded like you had this first problem approach, which is one of the best ways to find a product. And that is, you found a problem that was happening in your life, which means it's happening in other people's lives, and you find a way to solve it.
Mhm.
And you turned it into a product idea, which is really genius, and I love that. Was it hard to, so when that clicked for you and you're like, oh, I'm going to turn this into a product, how did you approach like manufacturing? Did you decide to like find a local supplier or a manufacturer, or did you reach out to like manufacturers overseas? How was that for you?
Yeah, so the real catalyst in 2019, I lost both my parents. They both passed away within like a 7-week period of each other. My mom was diagnosed with cancer a few months before that. My dad had cancer for a few years and then ended up having a few strokes. And I didn't really come from money or anything, but my parents had a house and there was a little bit of money that was split up between us 4 kids. And so whenever I got that money, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. And now I was like getting this gift that I wasn't expecting. And I was at a point in my life where I've also been investing for years, putting, money into the stock market. So I was I wanted to take that money and do something with it that I would remember my parents by. So I decided that I wanted to do rough liners with it. I wanted to take that money and put it into rough liners. And so I just went on Alibaba. I'd heard about Alibaba before, but before this period, I think maybe once or twice I'd went on there just to like see what it was about, but I never really like looked much into it. I was just like, oh, this is an interesting website. I'd heard about it on the stock market or whatever, right? And so I just went on Alibaba and I probably emailed at least like 50 different manufacturers. I had like a PowerPoint presentation that I made that was just like a slide, and it was just like using the tools in PowerPoint to draw out like a drawing of what the product would be in dimensions, and to kind of like help them visualize, and then like a couple of photos from like the prototype that I had in my truck, so that they could like see the functionality inside a vehicle and what I was trying to get after. And probably most of those manufacturers just came back with like, oh, this is what we sell. I'm like, yeah, I don't care what you sell. Like I want to sell this other product. And I got a little bit lucky that I just happened to find the right manufacturing rep. Her name's Kathy with my manufacturer, and to this day I still work with her. And she came back to me and she was like, "Oh yeah, like we can help with that." And she took my idea, and through bouncing ideas back and forth, she was like, "Well, some customers maybe do this, or do you want to use these types of materials?" And I'm like, "Well, what do you think?" And she's like, "Well, some customers use like this or this." And through back and forth, we kind of, we talked about it a little bit. We got to the point where it was definitely slow at the beginning. A lot of maybe I'm thinking about ideas for a few weeks before I can make a decision, because I was going from like absolutely nothing to something. And so, yeah, Alibaba was really where I started. And it's a process, I think, if you're trying to get something new created that a manufacturer isn't already producing, and you want them to like make it the way that you want it. So for months I just went back and forth with her. And then eventually at the end of 2020 is whenever I got my first order, and it was just the beta version of Roughliners. It didn't have a brand or anything on it yet. I didn't even come up with the brand name yet of Roughliners. I just knew of this product, right? And so I got my first 200 units. I did 100 medium and 100 larges, and it was definitely not the quality I'm at right now. There's been a lot of design changes. I didn't even have plastic molds for the part that goes in the windows yet, but it was a place to start. And so I got 200 units delivered to my house that took up half my garage and it took me about a year and a half, or a little over, about a year and a half to just sell those first 200 units. I had no idea. I took some pictures in my garage and I just posted it on Shopify. I figured out Shopify. Later on, my buddy was like, "You should try Etsy." So I tried Etsy. Etsy was a little bit better. And the first orders were a lot of friends and family. I didn't do any advertising, and just slowly people found my Shopify. When I put it on Etsy, slowly people found my Etsy. And by just listening to customer feedback, luckily I had a lot of friends and family, probably like a total of like 50 friends and family over that period that bought it, that, I asked them for honest feedback and like what they really thought of the product, and what could be better about the product. And, using, that's one thing that, I think Lean Startup talks about it, and 0 to 1 also talks about it. And that's something that I recognize at ASML is you can't wait till your product is perfect to launch it. I think it's best, especially if you have a different idea. Is Roughliners innovative? I don't know. In some ways, it depends on how you define innovation. It is like a different product in the marketplace that I have patents for that's, disrupting my category. But in order to have that change, you have to be willing to just put it out there to the customers and then see how you can make the product better. So I started off slow, and over that period, just getting lots of customer feedback. I kind of identified where it could be better. There was even a 6-month period where I stopped selling because the window inserts were not good enough. The glue I was using would kind of break down in the sun. So I spent like 6 months just researching glues and like the materials that I'm using, and finding a manufacturer to make some plastic molds for me. And then that eventually got better, and I've iterated and redone my molds a couple of times to make them better and better. But you just got the best advice I ever got. I had a friend in Iraq, and whenever we got back, he used his money to start a flower business. And then, when I was trying to maybe rent some mountain bikes or something, I was talking to him on the phone about this business idea, and it's the best advice I've ever heard. And I think it applies to so many things in life. Just get started. Like, so many people can hold themselves up with solving problems that don't even exist yet. But if you just get started and start selling a product, then you'll learn what the real problems are you have to sell, like you have to solve, and just solve those problems. Even to this day, maybe a friend or somebody will be like, "Oh, why don't you do this?" And I'm like, "I've sold 23,000 of these, and no one's ever mentioned that in a review or in a return. So I don't know if I need to go and redesign this part of the product. That's just yes, in theory, maybe that's better, but is it really a problem?" And so if you just get started, I think then you'll really learn like what problems you have to solve. And then you can really focus on where you need to go from there.
Wow. Yeah. First of all, I'm sorry for your loss. And what a legacy it is, to take what your parents left you and, turn it into a passion and a business. That's Amazing. And one of the questions that I want to ask you is, so how much did you invest that first year into your product? And did you start with like ordering samples before you placed your first inventory order, or did you just like trust your supplier and you're like, okay, send me 200 units, or did you ask for like, send me a sample, let me see how it looks? Did you do any of that stuff initially, or
Yeah. Yeah. So I got a few samples. I don't remember exactly how many samples I got before the first production run. Probably like 3 or 4. Sorry, my camera's kind of out of focus here. Let me turn my light on. Sorry.
no
It'll
worries?
probably focus a little better. Yeah, I don't remember exactly how many, but I got a couple of samples. I actually felt like, at first I felt like I was kind of an inconvenience to my manufacturer because I was new to the process. I probably could have ordered a few more samples before and just got aggressive. Now I order lots of samples, little changes. And now I'm at the volume that my manufacturer is just more than happy to send me samples of anything that I want to like slightly change and think about. And I'm always coming up with weird ideas of stuff that I just want to try out and test. But I didn't order that many samples. Maybe like 3 to 5, maybe somewhere around there.
So maybe like $300 worth of samples.
Yeah, I think my manufacturer was charging me like $75 a sample. Like it was just shipping costs, like $50 to $75 for the shipping cost to send me each sample. And so I just did it that way. And then whenever I ordered, and so I initially invested about 15,000 in order to get the pay for shipping and get the first round of like 200 units and then maybe cover like some other small costs. But then also there's through 2020, 2021, and maybe a little bit of 2022, there was other just random costs that I just, I didn't really have a business bank account set up yet. I was just paying for everything out of my own pocket. And
Did you
so
have
there,
a business at all, or you were
no,
just doing it? Okay.
I set up my business towards the end of 2022, whenever I was actually ready to launch Roughliners.
Yeah.
Before it was I was just in this test period. And so, yeah, that first, until I launched Roughliners, I spent, I definitely put 15K into the first round of inventory.
And that's not a bad idea at all, actually, because a lot of people get hung up on like starting a business. And I think like, and me looking back too, I think I did the same thing. Like, I think unless you have a proof of concept and like, okay, this is working, then like, okay, go invest in starting a business.
Yeah.
It could help too if you have a job and you want to like cut some of your taxes. Like, it could be beneficial to start a business from that sense. I'm not
Yeah.
a tax expert, but I've seen some, returns from that because I was working 9 to 5 when I started my business, and starting an LLC helped me with like, saving some taxes. But also like, you don't have to be hung up on starting a business because it is a whole thing. Like, you have to learn and do and follow up with and be accountable for. um but yeah, like, so you got 200 units and you started like selling them. But looking back, so it took you about a year and a half, you said, to try to sell those 200 units.
Yeah.
Looking back now, like, what would you have done differently that could have saved you time and money? Obviously, like, you didn't know this back then and you were kind of learning as you go. But what is something like, if you went back, you would have like done differently starting up?
I would have went straight to Amazon.
Okay.
Like, if you sell a product and it can be sold online to consumers, there's maybe a few niches that this doesn't apply to, like fishing. I've looked up fishing stuff, and I think that people don't really buy fishing gear that much unless it's like rods and reels from Amazon, because they like to go to their local fish shop. But there, with the exception of a few niches, you probably should be selling on Amazon. Like, very first, you should just try to get on Amazon. It's one of the most visited websites in the world. Consumers go, when people go on Amazon, they're actually looking to purchase. Trying to run ads, I'm not. Maybe there's somebody out there that has a formula that they're running Facebook ads or Instagram ads, and they're getting really good customer acquisition cost and producing like really good sales and building this like 7-8 figure business off of like Shopify and Etsy and not on Amazon. But I think that if you like most products, if you are on Amazon, I feel like I would have sold those 200 units so much faster. Because so in June, around 4th of July in 2022, I took 2 weeks off of work. And so one of those weeks, do you hear it clicking in the background or no?
No, you're good.
Not a bone. Okay.
You're good.
So I took 2 weeks off work, and the first week was just to get my listing on Amazon. I'd tried multiple times, and it's like if you don't know anything about Seller Central, I didn't know anything, and I have a new product, so it's not just selling the same thing that other people have. So I need to create a new listing, and in my category, I had to even get approval to create a new listing because it's under automotive, and they have to approve that it's like for safety reasons and stuff. And I took a whole week off of work, and I worked all day every day, like a good 60-hour week or something or more, and just watching YouTube videos and listing getting flagged for pesticides because I put things like antimicrobial material or something, right? And so when I first launched my product on Amazon, it was maybe 4 or 5 photos that were taken in my garage that were like just by my buddy who, like, we go out mountain biking together, and I'm like, oh, you got some nice cameras, like come over with your cameras and let's take some photos. And so like, and then the product description was like 2 or 3 sentences. And so it was like, no, there was no bullets. I had no, like, I didn't think about the title and optimizing for like SEO. I didn't have any A+ content. I didn't have a registered brand. I just threw my product on Amazon, and immediately I started seeing more sales. Like I was selling a few a week. It wasn't anything crazy. I wasn't even running ads. I wasn't doing anything. It was just on Amazon. And somehow, and then that showed me that there was like, oh, this is there's demand here. And this is working better than what I've been doing for the last year plus on Shopify and Etsy. And by the time I went to Amazon, I was trying to run a little bit of ads. I, tested a little bit of like Facebook ads, not with using a graphic designer or anything, just like making some stuff myself. And then, running some ads through Etsy that are just wherever they run them, a few dollars a day or whatever. And it just really wasn't doing much. But as soon as I went to Amazon, it started selling without like much effort, not like a whole lot, but I was stoked to be like, oh man, I sold like 6 units this week or something like that. Right. And for the amount of effort that I put in, I mean, it showed me that customers want this type of product. And so that was kind of the point where whenever after that week of taking a week off, I went back to work for like a week or two. And I was talking to one of my buddies, and I was like, man, I just loved that week of working for myself for that week and focused on my own business. And now like going to my engineering jobs, so mundane and like, but yeah, I would have just, I think if anybody wants to sell a product, Sawyer, come. I like going to Amazon is where you need to sell any consumer product that you could come up with. And
yeah, that must have been exciting starting, seeing the changes just going on Amazon. A lot of people don't know this, but like Amazon sells about, I think last year they sold $400 billion in sales revenue. And this year I think they're targeting, or they're projecting they're going to be selling about $700 billion in sales. I mean, more than 50% of online e-commerce goes through Amazon here in the US, which is, incredible. And that must have been really exciting. And do you remember roughly like how much the first month, like how much did you make?
Oh, I don't know. Here, let me see. I could probably, I was, it was like less than $1,000. It's like $780. But at the time, I was selling my product for a much lower price too. I was selling them at like $50 or something like that.
$50 a unit. What was your startup cost?
The 15,000 plus maybe a few thousand more just for.
So 15,000 divided by 200.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's gonna be like 7.5, I'm guessing.
And that was for.
So it was $75. So you were selling it at a loss from.
Well, the per unit cost was, around 20 something dollars. There was some money that went into samples, and I have a spreadsheet where I keep a lot of my cost breakdown, but I don't have the spreadsheet from whenever I did my first launch. I do have like other spreadsheets that I made for like whenever I like actually launched the brand and the full price breakdown.
Okay. I mean, I'm guessing like if you spent roughly 15,000 and you were selling it at $50, you were selling it at a bit of a loss initially, but now you're selling it at I think 98, right?
Well, yeah, my best seller is around $150 for the extra large, and then my medium is, so it's like between $100 and $160.
Nice.
Depending on which size.
So now you turn that around, which is also like a learning curve, because in the beginning you're trying to learn, like, all these costs, like how much does it cost me to get this product, how much should I be selling it for, how much are other people selling their products for. So it's a bit of a it's a bit tricky in the beginning.
Yeah.
But let's see
Yeah,
here.
even when I really launched Roughliners was December 2022. That was whenever I launched the brand. I had like the logo on it. I had packaging.
Is that when you changed the prices too? And
Well, whenever I first launched like the brand, I did sell to begin with at a loss strategically to try to just like push sales and to
right.
get better ranking. And then after a few weeks, raise the price a little bit, slowly raise the price. I learned that I found I don't know if you're aware of My Amazon Guy. They have a podcast on YouTube, and
Yeah,
during that week,
I just did a podcast with him recently.
okay, great, yeah,
Steven. Yeah, he's great.
yeah. When I first started watching, it was Steven doing all the episodes.
Mm.
And so, yeah, so I learned a lot from them, and that was one of the strategies that they teach is if you're launching a new product, start it. Let me let my dog in. She's so annoying. Sorry, these dogs are needy. So yeah, so
No worries.
that was one thing that he teaches is like, maybe sell at a loss or a little, maybe half the price where you think you're actually going to end up just to get some units moving, get some reviews and everything, and eat some costs there, and then slowly start raising the price.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's a good strategy. Start low and start slowly increasing once you start creating some friction and this way also it helps with the ranking on Amazon.
Yeah.
But
My
but
price
that's good.
kind of got to where it is now, mostly from like whenever I launched in December 2022, and even that round, I had between my medium and my large, I realized the large sold out much faster, and there was more demand for people with trucks. And so I kind of didn't have the money to invest and keep doing two sizes. I needed to put money into maybe just focusing on one product, getting some sales for that for a few months, turn some inventory, and then start launching more variations. And so like the first half of 2023, I was selling out a lot. And so every time that I would, be like, oh, I'm starting to sell out, I would start increasing the price, seeing that, my sales velocity really isn't changing. And so I kind of just realized, I thought, oh, people would pay maybe $100 for this. And then by the time I get up to $150, I'm like, people are still buying this at the same amount of like traction as they were before. And so it kind of just, I used that. I sold out a lot. There would be just times where it's like for a few weeks I'm sold out. I would get more inventory in, and I would just keep turning that money. And I didn't really have the money set up and the inventory management set up to really be on a schedule that I was keeping inventory in stock. And so kind of through that process of being sold out and then getting more inventory in stock and selling out, I kind of just found, I was like, well, I guess this is where people will pay. And I want to sell a great product. So that means I can put a little bit more money into cost of goods, get a little bit nicer packaging, do some other things. And so, I'm actually surprised at the price point that I've ended up at, because when I first started this business, I was thinking, oh, I'll try to sell these for like $50-$60, right? But in reality, for the quality that I sell, there's no way that I could sell like the quality of product that I sell at $50. I just wouldn't be able to.
Yeah, that's a really good point. You are selling quality, and people are gonna pay for quality. So one of the things that I would like to know is like, what changes did you start making like throughout month 1, month 2, month 3? Because a lot of like beginner sellers, like that's some of the obstacles that we're going through. Like each one of us have different products, different situations. So what was one thing that you changed like from month 1 to month 2?
So when I launched in December 2022, I'd use my Amazon guide to do a full listing optimization.
Hmm.
And with that, I found a professional product photographer. I just happened to be doing some Googling, and there was some guy that lives, 10 minutes from my house that takes product photos that have been in magazines. He's worked with some golfing brands and stuff. And he happens to be like 10 minutes down the road. So I give him a call. He's like, yeah, we can do some photos. He's never really done this before, but it was a learning process. I just had an idea looking at other listings. These are the types of photos I need. So, I give them the photos and they do the full listing optimization. And so I was planning to launch 200 units. Through that full listing optimization, they start showing me my helium 10. This is what your competitors are doing. This is what the top 100 is doing. This is what keywords they're ranking for. This is, bullets, all this stuff. And so, when I launched, everything was like pretty optimized for like a phase one optimization of like launching a new, my listings gotten better over time, but I mean, it was worlds better. And, we were doing a new product launch with a new SKU. So we had the honeymoon phase of, this is a new product. I started with a low price. We were optimized everything from title, bullets, alt text for SEO. And so right off the bat, things were doing like way better. December I did, here, let me see. I have, so in that December, I did like 7,500 in sales. And I realized, I'm going to sell out before I can get my next inventory in. And then
that's December of 2023?
Of 2022.
2022. Okay. So that's pretty much your first month too on Amazon. Okay.
Yeah. And I was like, and I started off at a low price. I think I started selling at $50, just trying and knowing that I was selling at a loss and not really looking at the full scope of all my SKU economics. I don't even think I was running ads then. Maybe I was running $10 a day or something on like an auto campaign, but I don't think I was really running. Yeah, it says, I don't, Scale Insights, I don't think still has that data. Let me see. I could probably look back on my campaigns, but I don't think if I did spend any money on ads, I was maybe spending $10 a day on just an auto campaign. I wasn't planning on spending anything on ads. And so then we're going in. So I'm realizing, I'm going to sell out before I can even get more inventory in stock. Thinking it would maybe take a little bit slower. And by the time I sell about half of these, I could make another order and then like slowly try to like flip inventory. And now we're going into Chinese New Year's. So late December, early January, I'm trying to contact my manufacturer. And this was actually like a huge pivotal point for my business, because now I'm like, okay, I can see that people want to buy this product. These aren't friends and family. This is just random people online. And I've put a little bit more effort. I paid a couple $1,000 to get my full listing optimization, but I'm not running ads. Talking to Stephen Pope and getting advice from them. They're like, look, for us to manage your account, you need to be spending at least $4,000 a month on ad spend, just minimum, probably more than that. I'm spending, this month's low because I was low on inventory this month, but I'm spending over 60,000 a month now on ads. But it's like, at the time, it's like 4,000 a month. Wow, that's a lot of money to be spending on ads. And then I'm going into Chinese New Year's and I'm trying to tell my manufacturer, like, all right, now I want to order 1,000 units or something. And they're like, well, Chinese New Year's is coming up. We don't know if we can get that done. And I'm like, well, could you just ship me like 200 units before Chinese New Year's and then the rest after Chinese New Year's? And we're going through this whole negotiation. And I was even considering, I was like, well, I was a small fish, right? I ordered 200 units from them and it took me a year and a half to sell those 200 units. And now I come back and order 200 more units. There's not a lot of manufacturers that are going to do a production run of 200 units. Right. Right. And so I'm like, man, I need them to do this. So I tried to find another manufacturer. I went through some rep that the quality was good, but they just took forever to iterate, like to get me samples. It took forever. And I was like, there's no way that this is going to work with my business model that I'm trying to iterate over as I get more customer feedback to keep making the product better and better, almost basically order by order. And my manufacturer, when I hit them up for a sample and I'm like, hey, I need a sample, they're within like a week shipping it to me, and I'm getting it within like 2 or 3 weeks max of whenever I send them the drawings and we get a little bit of photos back and forth and video. And next thing you know, like I got it within probably like 2 weeks. And so like the Chinese New Year's happens and I'm like selling out, or I'm sold out. And then I get my order in. And even then I'm wanting to ramp up production and I'm not getting priority. So I made like I made like a good few I made a good slide deck. And I kind of sent them my vision. And I was like, look, I've started off slow, but this is what's going to happen over the next year. And so around February, or I think of February when they were coming back from Chinese New Year's, I kind of sent them this is my plan. I currently have this order with you. I'm about to place this other order. We're going to do 2 or 3 more orders. And then I'm developing this other product later this year. And then I'll have another product I want to launch later this year. And by the end of the year, I'm going to order 15,000 units from y'all, right? So it's like I started off as a small fish, but like I'm trying to let them know that like we're about to ramp up and this is my vision. But like to get here, I need y'all to like help me out and be able to like give me a little bit of priority. And so, I kind of laid out this plan for them. And then last November, whenever I went to go visit them, I even told them, I was like, I told you what I was going to do and I did it plus a lot more. So like have the faith in me. And now I have a really good relationship with my manufacturer. They saw that like I said what I was going to do, and then I over accomplished all of that plus more. And now, I have a really good relationship with them. I can leverage that. And I kind of it can be hard when you're starting off small to kind of get the attention of your manufacturer. And I think sometimes, one thing in Think and Grow Rich is a really good book. It's a classic that's been around forever. And one thing he talks about, and this is an Andrew Carnegie thing, is, you have to be willing to say to the world, like, this is what I'm going to do. And another thing I love from Alex Hormozy, a saying he has is like, you don't wake up in the morning and build confidence by shouting affirmations. You build confidence by having a large stack of evidence that you are who you say you are. But this also applies to your manufacturers and stuff. When you tell them that you're going to do something and then you follow through and you do whatever it takes in order to make that happen, then the people around you start joining on your team. And so whether it's my Amazon guy or my ads agency or my manufacturer or my shipping company, as I need them to help me, I try to show them the benefit of how they're going to benefit from this by being on this ride with me. And then, I do whatever it takes in order to make sure that happens. And, and I think that I earn a lot of respect from the other companies that I work with, because I'm willing to make bold statements and then follow through and make that happen.
That's awesome, man. You had the vision, you believed in yourself, and you doubled down on it, which is very inspiring. And that's exactly what you need in this business, because you saw it. Nobody knows your product, your business more than you do, and you felt like there is a demand here. This is a niche that I can capitalize on, that I can double down on, and that's amazing. What is one thing that you wish that could have got you out of that tornado early on? I mean, a lot of things in this business, a lot of hurdles in this business is about jumping hurdles.
Yeah, I think when I first started, like I said, I didn't have the data analysis part from, Helium 10 is a good tool to just, the numbers aren't 100% accurate. Even when I look at my numbers, I'm like, they're a little bit off, plus or minus maybe 100,000 of what I'm actually doing in sales this month. But just whenever I got that report from my Amazon guy doing my listing, and I was able to look at the top 100, and I was able to look at what the top 50 is doing, and even the top 30, and then see how many units they're doing, and and be like, oh man, my category is doing like $6 to $12 million a month in sales. There's brands out here that are doing, just on a single product, they're doing 600,000 or something, and they got multiple products. They're doing over $1 million a month in this category. I feel like Roughliners is a better design. It's more convenient. It provides value to people's lives that really need it. And so I didn't see any reason why I couldn't be one of the top players in this category. And so then it was just reverse engineering. Okay, if I want to do 2,000 units a month, which still isn't the big dogs in the category, but it's up there in the top 30 to 50 range. If I want to be able to do those kind of units, then I need to be having, this amount of inventory coming in every month, and then just being able to reverse engineer, how do I get there? And so it's laying down on a spreadsheet and being like, man, if I just flip these 200 units and then get 3, whatever, 4, however many units, then it's like, man, it's going to take me years to grow this business, to just eventually flip the inventory enough and never pay myself and just keep reinvesting in everything. And but I could, as I slowly ramped up sales and I saw on the big days that it's like, oh man, if I could just keep averaging this and stop selling out and then having to recover my sales again, then I could be at this or this. And so, that's what gave me the confidence. In 2023, I put it like another $50,000 in. And so at that point, I'd put about between $80,000 and $90,000, $85,000 and $90,000, because there's maybe about $5,000 worth of random costs that weren't big inputs into the business. And so that's when I put $50,000 in. That was all going towards inventory, to be able to ramp up inventory to get to the point where I would stop selling out. I kept getting in the top 100, but I just would fall out of it because I was running out of inventory. And so, if you believe in your product, then, and I ran into quality issues early 2023. There was, things that happened, and maybe there was months that I lost money because there was like a higher amount of return rate, or and so, I'd have to go to the manufacturer and work on our inspection process and just keep bringing these issues to them and talking with them on how we can solve these issues. But I think if you just really believe in your product and it's something that you're passionate about, then once you see the data of what your category is doing and you really want to go for like being in the top 10 of your category, then you got to reverse engineer. If my tacos is good tacos and then that means my ACOS is this, which means I need to be able to spend this amount of money on advertising every month, which means I need to move this many units every month. And then once you break all those down into financials, you're like, well, it might take a few months to get there, but now you have a clear marker in the future of where you're really trying to get to. And so I think once I had all that data in front of me, and then I could see that the sales were increasing and increasing, and customer feedback was great, and there was maybe some things that needed to slightly change, and I kept working on those, and it made it really clear like what I needed to do. And I made a spreadsheet where it was literally like a 1-year plan of like, this is when I order and all this stuff, and this is how much money I'm gonna make off each inventory order. And I kind of just laid out a plan, and that's whenever I was able to send all that information to my manufacturer and be like, look, this is what's going to happen, and this is how I'm going to get there. And so I think the big thing is, if I would have known about some of these tools like Helium 10 earlier on, then I could have maybe had a better understanding of where I needed to get to. But in hindsight, I think I did it the right way, because these quality issues that I had, or dealing with different shipping companies, I paid a lot of extra money in shipping early on, that I was like figuring out the best way to ship and things like that. A lot of the learning process that probably cost me money was not as big as a cost as it could have been, because I was able to learn at a lower budget, where if I just went ahead and threw in $100,000 or whatever at the beginning of Roughliners to start, that could have been crippling and could have been like really bad for the brand. It also could have, if I'm getting, X amount of percentage of bad reviews, and that's lots and lots of sales, then that's way more sales that I have to get once I fix the quality issues that are going to bring those reviews up. So, over the last year, I brought my rating up, even in the last 6 months, from like a 4.3 to a 4.5, but just keep addressing quality issues and keep focusing on the things that customers need. And even little things like customers be like, oh, it's complicated to install. And so like thinking about how is it packaged, and then being like, yeah, it doesn't make sense, and changing the way that it's folded in the box so that whenever it comes out of the box, it's intuitive for the customer, that it just automatically unfolds into the back seat. And then a little tag on the side that says driver's side. So when you pull it out of the bag, it just makes sense. Immediately, all those reviews went away. And so starting slow, I think is a good method, but sticking with it and being like persistent is the way to go.
I love that. That's such a good tip. Yeah, I noticed you have a lot of good reviews on your listing, and I wanted to ask you: is that something that grew organically, or did you do something to grow? Because one of the things that new sellers battle with are like getting reviews on their listing. And did you do anything? Like, did you have a strategy to getting positive reviews, or just getting reviews in general? Or were those mostly organic?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much all organic. I did Vine, at the beginning, launching the new product when I originally launched Roughliners, to help get some reviews, and then a handful of maybe 15, 20 family members or whatever that ordered them early on, gave me maybe some reviews whenever they got their product in. But yeah, I mean, it's all organic. I mean, I don't know exactly. I'd have to ask my Amazon guy, because they run that. But I mean, basically, whenever a customer gets it, then we send them an email that, hey, we love reviews, or something. It's like standard through Amazon, just to kind of a follow-up email. But yeah, I'm launching soon, like an insert that has a QR code that's going to bring you to warranty and stuff, and then ask for maybe a review, or just if you love the product, we love to get customer feedback. But there's a good amount of bad reviews that I've got. I sell a premium product, and as a person, I feel obligated that if somebody gives me their money and they're not happy with their purchase, then I'm willing to give a refund, or I'm willing to like somehow make this customer happy. And so one thing that I get a lot is, sometimes the customer doesn't get a great experience the first time, but instead of just looking at a bad review and saying, I know they're not going to change their review, I'm not going to do anything. Instead, I do reach out. It doesn't matter if I hate to put this out there, because everyone's going to try to get a refund, but if somebody gives me a bad review, then I reach out to them. I figure out what the problem is. Can I send you a replacement? Even if it's you ordered this 3 or 6 months ago and it ripped or something because your dog is just crazy in your back seat, and it's like, let me try to help you out. And so something I get from a lot of customers is that they're surprised that it's me. When as soon as you send me an email, I answer in like an hour, and it's not a template. It's me answering every customer email. It's that Gary V mindset of like deep in the weeds of always checking Instagram and TikTok and everything. And whenever there's content about my product or a customer email, then I'm getting back to you right away on a Saturday night, and I'm trying to like help you out. And if you're like, I got to leave to take my dog on this trip in like 3 days, then I'm like, I'm getting you another rough liner to make sure that you're set and everything's good. And so that's maybe cost me some money and cost me some margin, especially last year as there was some problems. I had a a batch of inventory that was like missing the plastic pieces. We've improved the inspection process now to make sure that doesn't happen. But I don't know, there was a good percentage of a whole container that was just missing plastic pieces. And so, going myself and mailing out plastic, extra sets of plastic pieces that I have in my garage to lots and lots of customers. I think that you can turn a bad customer experience around. And so I think if a lot of brands you got to focus on the overall customer experience. And it's not just purchasing your product. It's not just unboxing it and using it. It's whenever they need support, whether they didn't get an instruction manual or this doesn't make sense or it doesn't fit my vehicle well, and just listening to them and trying to take their feedback. And then maybe months later, hey, we have a new product. I remember you had this issue. I'd love to give you a discount code or do whatever it is to try to help some customers out. Then I've been able to help turn some of those bad reviews into much better reviews, because I don't think that customers on Amazon assume that a brand is going to go above and beyond. And a lot of times I think customers just leave a bad review because there's always going to be defective products. No matter how, this is something I know from ASML and working for like a huge company. If you're doing volume amount of sales, then there's no way that you can have, if you have 100% of every product shows up with no defects, then your like manufacturing process is going to be so costly that you're just going to like not be able to make a profit. So there's a certain medium that you have to be in. That I don't want quality issues, but there's some things that are out of my control. And Amazon is sometimes the problem. Sometimes they just don't deliver the product on time, or sometimes they lose the product or it gets damaged during shipping. And so, I take a lot of pride in providing really good customer service and really listening to my customers and treating them the same way that I'd want to be treated.
Nice. Yeah, these are really good insights, and I appreciate you sharing all of that. I know we're running out of time, but I would like to leave this. I like to do this at the end. And what are 3 mistakes that cost you money throughout this whole process that you can share with us?
So the biggest one is when I first launched Rough Liners in December 2022, I didn't optimize my packaging for the different packaging sizes. And so one side of my package was an inch too long. My second largest side was an inch too big. And so I was my packaging category was small, oversized. And by just changing the way that we folded the product in the container, we were able to move that inch to the other side where we had a couple of inches to play with. And that reduced my Amazon fees by like $5 per unit. So that probably cost me a good $5,000 to $10,000 in Amazon fees early on, starting off, which definitely impacted being able to order more inventory and grow quicker. And that was just something I wasn't even aware of, that I didn't know that there was different packaging size. Other big mistakes, I would say shipping was I wasted a lot of money last year trying different shipping methods from Amazon Global Logistics, trying different, I send everything direct to Amazon now. Maybe at certain scale, people can use a 3PL. I've wasted a lot of money and time on getting my inventory to Amazon by sending inventory to my 3PL because I didn't have enough space at Amazon yet, because I was still scaling, and they don't see that, oh, I'm launching 2 new products. I need all this extra inventory space. I know I'm going to sell that. Amazon's not giving it to me. It would have saved me money to just send everything to AWD earlier on. I didn't learn about that really till like the end of last year. So like for me, using a 3PL, it wasted a lot of extra time, caused more selling out because it's just taking longer for those containers. Once I got to full containers, just sending it straight to AWD from my manufacturer reduced the amount of shipping time. And there's so many charges with 3PLs that they got to offload the truck, they got to palletize everything, now they got to load it on another truck. I have all these extra fees, and it was like, oh, it's getting beat up with fees, and I didn't have the foresight to see. So it was a learning experience and a lot of testing of what's the most optimal way to do shipping. um and then some would maybe argue that I'm very decisive, and so there's maybe I could have maybe had more samples and focused a little bit more on making sure that sometimes you don't know quality issues until you get them out in the field. And there's a lot, the samples I got, there's a lot of quality issues I've never seen personally, but I might get customer feedback because the samples I get are not made in high volume manufacturing off the production floor. They're made by a special team at my manufacturer that's making the first few prototypes in a different lab. And so maybe there was a little bit more testing that could go into it. But I'm a firm believer in just getting the product out there and getting some customer feedback and then taking it from there. Since this last November, I went to China, visited my manufacturer, went to Canton Fair, learned a lot about plastics and different types of materials. And this year now, my product quality has gotten much better. I've gotten better fabrics. I have my own molds for my plastic clips using raw plastic material and not recycled plastic because it's much stronger. But you don't know how much you need to over engineer until you get a lot of field testing. And so now I'm at 23,000 units of sales or something since December 2022. And that's a lot of customer feedback. And, I've addressed all those big issues, and now the product's gotten better and better. And I'll keep listening to customers. But I guess that's kind of like which perspective you come from. If you're not innovative, if you're not an innovative product like mine and you're just a Me Too product that everybody else is selling, then you probably want to be much more focused on the quality. First off, I think that, some customers have given me grace because they see that I'm a new brand, I'm a new product. And so there's a learning process with developing the product. And then, following up with good customer service has helped those customers, be loyal and come back again. So that's kind of depends on how you take it. Some people might. Now I am testing a lot more as I launch new products. Now I'm a more developed brand. I also have, I have my materials down and stuff like that. So I'm more confident as I'm launching. I have 2 new products that'll be landing in July and then more later this year. And so I have more control over all my materials now. But yeah, you never know. You just don't know what problems you have to solve until you get started. I didn't know about packaging. I didn't know about some of these things. But once you start learning and you're like, wait, why am I paying more fees in Amazon than all my competitors? And then you look deep into the details and you're like, oh, I didn't even know there was like a shipping categories.
Wow. Oh, and one last thing is, what are like 3 lessons you could share with someone who's starting new from your experience, that that could help them with their journey? And I mean, all of these are great lessons too, but
Yeah.
but something on the positive. And what is something that you can give advice to someone starting? Maybe they're having a a limitation or a block, and what are some lessons that you can share that can help someone?
Yeah. So I'll go with some advice for success, in my opinion. One, if you're trying to figure out what product to sell, find something that you're interested in and think about go deep in the niche. I like the saying, like, go an inch wide and a mile deep in your niche. And so I'm not over here trying to sell other dog products. I'm not trying to sell dog toys and stuff. I'm focused on, if you're focused on your specific niche and you just keep putting in the work, then, and this is something I've learned from Alex Hormozy, then you're going to just beat all the people that keep giving up. And so if you wanted to, there's a lot of good examples, right? Like, think about helmets that people wear, right? There's different kinds of mountain biking helmets. There's different kinds of motorcycle helmets. It depends on like what your customer needs that product for. So there's probably something that any person out there, there's probably something that you're very passionate about that you could think about. Why do people need a backpack to carry their school All right, then we need a school backpack. We need a laptop backpack. We need a backpack for just day hiking. We need a backpack just for people that go mountain biking that needs to be small. And so if you think about the product you want to create and then go deep into a niche of what the particular use case is for that, then you might not sell to everybody that needs a backpack, but you can be the best product for your specific use case. And so I think that that's the best approach when you're trying to find a new product that you want to launch and differentiate yourself in the market, because the most important factor is to differentiate yourself. I'm a firm believer in that. Another thing that really changed my perspective when I took that week off in for 4th of July and worked on my brand. During that week, I saw this post by Alex Hormozy, and he was talking with some lady, and she asked a question about, oh, well, how do I get to 300,000 or something? And he was like, why is your goal 300,000? Why is it not 3 million? And she was like, well, before I get to 3 million, I need to get to 300,000. And he was like, no, you're missing the point. If you start off with a goal that's 10 times bigger than what you can think about, and you just focus on that huge goal, then you're going to learn all the things in between that you need to solve that are in order to get there. And you'll also be thinking about constraints that don't even come up yet. I'm already thinking about what does it take for Rough-Liners to get to 50 million or 100 million. Even though I'm not there yet, it gives me the time to realize I'm going to have to go into retail. I'm going to have to do all these other things. So I came back from that 1 week of taking off and working on Rough-Liners. And instead of just thinking, oh, it would be nice to sell a product online and maybe I make an extra 30 to 60K a year and this will kind of supplement my income, to making a goal that I was going to quit my job in a year. And I did it in less than a year by just making a bigger goal and really focusing on that goal that's like way bigger than what I was doing before. Then you're going to solve all the problems in between that get you to those micro steps. So stop focusing on a goal that's so I mean, you do need to have, I have a goal for this month and for next month, right? And for this year. But the further out you think, 5 years down the road, where you really want to be at, the quicker it starts solving all these problems in between. And you don't get to a point where you have $1 million brand and now you're just now thinking about how do I get to 5 million. So I think go for bigger goals. And then the other thing is, and all these are things that I've really learned a lot from Alex Hormozy. Go listen to Alex Hormozy. But
oh, Alex is great.
People get rich from a lot of boring work. And if you really like this, I love this. I love doing it every day. I spend a good amount of my day wherever I'm at, even out to dinner, looking at my cells, looking at little things, maybe too much obsessive. But if you just keep putting in all the boring work, then eventually things work out. A lot of people don't get distracted. I hear Amazon sellers say, be careful what you're saying to other people. They're going to steal your idea. And I believe that if you are ready to jump ship on whatever you're working on, to come over here and try to compete with Rough-Liners, and you think that your distracted mindset of constantly jumping from one thing to another is going to be able to compete with me, there's absolutely no way. I'm focused on my lane, and I can listen to other people and I can talk about product ideas in other categories, but I am not interested in anything but what's right here in front of me. So just focus on your lane and do the boring work every day. And by doing all that boring work, you're going to get there.
Wow. Thank you so much, Brandon. That was so inspiring, and it's really great. Honestly, I'm so happy that we got to meet today and hear your story. And you know, I just can't thank you enough for sharing all that insights and all that experience. And I'm so happy for you, man. Congratulations. Rough-Liners looks like a great product. I'm so happy for you. I can't wait to like meet with you again and see like where this is gonna go, you know.
Sounds good, man. I appreciated talking to you today. It was great time.